Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 2254. The topic is nutrition, and the title is When Should You Adjust Your Macros? I had a client tell me recently in their journal. So all my one-on-one clients have an online journal that's private to them. We check in every week. They can send any questions. I send the answers. We do video reviews, nutrition reviews. It's our way to communicate and stay in touch with what is going on. In her journal, she wrote that she has been feeling changes in the gym. She's excited about the increases that she's been able to make in certain exercises, and she just feels in general more confident in the gym. And that is awesome. Absolutely love to hear that. But she did say that she's not seeing change on the scale. So she's seeing change in the gym, but she's not seeing change on the scale. Now, this client and I have talked before about how if the intensity and style of the training is new for her, and she's making progressions in her weight loads and volume, like more reps, more sets, and stuff like that, that she's likely building muscle tissue. So it is possible that she's gaining muscle tissue, which would add body weight, while she is losing body fat, which would take away from body weight. So although the scale isn't changing, it doesn't mean that we're not making progress. She could be making a change in her body composition, the amount of fat we have compared to her muscle mass. Those two might be changing, but the net difference is there's no change on the scale. Now, she then said, is it time for us to update my macros? Now, for this client, I have her track her daily calories and her daily protein, and we track that by using time blocks. So the first 5 to 6 hours of the day, she aims for a third of her calories and protein. The second 5 to 6 hours of the day, she aims for a second third of her calories and protein. And then a final time that she's awake, she would get in the final amount of her calories and protein. This helps because previously she was under-eating during the day and overeating at night, and that led to poor body composition. The body was holding more fat than it needed to, and it wasn't building and maintaining as much muscle as we'd want it to. With the corrections that we've been able to make, she has seen changes in her physique. She's felt the changes in the gym, but the scale has been a little stagnant. One of the things I wanted to point out to her, though, is that there is a difference, and I tried to do this kindly, so hopefully I did it. Hopefully I accomplished that goal. There is a difference between being like on a diet or feeling the pressure of a diet or the pressure of any goal whatsoever, whether it's nutrition related or not, is we often have the pressure of what we are supposed to do. But then we have the what did we actually do? So often people feel the pressure of what they're supposed to do, and they're like, well, I've been feeling that pressure for a while. Why am I not seeing results? And it's like, well, just because you feel the pressure, that's not what produces results. It's what we do that produces results. So I looked over her past 12 days, and it just happened to work out that way. I normally would track people's numbers like per week because it's easier to kind of comprehend and put into a lifestyle factor. But in the last 12 days, she only reached her both calorie and protein targets on 5 out of the last 12 days. So one day she might be right in the calorie range, but her protein is really low, and that would indicate that we actually overconsumed fats and carbs. On other days, the calories might be too high, or the protein was too low. There was some differential between the two, that only 5 out of the last 12 days was she actually adhering to our current targets. So when somebody asks, when should you adjust your macros? When should you adjust the numbers that you're aiming for? Well, if there's a lack of adherence, it's better that you change your approach. And this is because no matter what numbers you choose, if you're not adhering to these ones, you're not going to magically adhere to the next ones. So we have to figure out what are we struggling with adherence-wise. You don't move the goalpost, as they say. You don't rearrange the goal, the target. You say, okay, well, my ability to hit the target, that's what I want to work on. And that would be food selection, how we meal prep, the way we plan our days, even just prioritization throughout the day. Sometimes people are like, well, I could eat now, but let me send this last email. And then 2 hours later, they're like, crap, I forgot to eat. So we do have to decide where our nutrition, where our training, where our best habits for whatever our goals are, where they fall on our priority list, and then make sure that we follow that priority list in our decisions throughout the day. This is actually one of the ways that I've worked to reduce stress and anxiety in my life is I have a people priority list, and nobody that's not on the top likes that. But I have a people priority list, and that way if I have a situation in which 2 people need something from me, I don't have to have the anxiety and the stress of what do I do in that moment. And I never, ever, ever want to accept the common phrase, you hurt the ones you love the most. Absolute bullshit. The people I love the most, I want to get the most from me. And having a people priority list ensures that I always am attentive to the people highest on the list. And if somebody lower than them on the list doesn't get served that day, doesn't get help that day, it is unfortunate. I don't feel great when that happens, but I don't have to feel anxiety because I know the order of which I should be attending to my decisions when it comes to people. I have the same thing when it comes to work. I'm assuming you all probably do as well, is we know the things that are most important in our job. We know the things that they're important, but they're not the most important. And then the things that are kind of like fillers, like we have to kind of do maybe sort of, but they don't move the needle. I really want to make sure that I'm spending my day doing the things that makes the most money. Now, why am I money focused? It's because money represents how I'm helping people. Not always, but the way my business is set up is I have it set to where the deeper I work on a person, the more money I can make for the time given. I've strategically set this up, and it took me freaking 10 plus years to do this, which shouldn't have taken me 10 years, I'm sure, but this is the first time I've ever run a business. So it took me 10 years, but I'm sure somebody else might be able to do it faster. Is I wanted to structure it because there's, in the services related to health and fitness world, there are a million services that are an inch deep, but they try to serve a million people. They don't really make that significant of a difference in a person's life. It gives them an option. It gives them something to try or do, but it doesn't answer the deeper questions. It doesn't solve the emotional, mental issues related to nutrition and training and self-esteem and confidence. It just doesn't make a dent, in my opinion. I would rather deep dive into the lives of the people I help, be able to help them to a depth that is meaningful, but then a breadth that still allows me to reach a lot of people. So my goal is to think of depth first. Like, what depth of helping someone is meaningful to me, that wakes me up in the morning, that motivates me to make videos and content and podcasts. So to what depth do I want to help people? And then at that depth, how many people can I help? When I approach my business in that way, it makes me the happiest, and it makes the people I work with the happiest. I've struggled with approaching the business in different ways prior, and that just led to less communication, less depth, and less actual service and help. And it wasn't good for me mentally. It wasn't good for the clients, I'm sure mentally, but from whatever I could tell and whatever they expressed, they wanted more communication. So I've been trying to do better communication. I set up the Patreon account recently that has a bunch of training programs, but it has the ability to do Q&A for each individual. Anybody who signs up on Patreon can ask me a question, and I'll answer it once a week. I'm really trying my best to suit the business in a sense that I get the depth that I want, so I believe what I'm doing is meaningful, but then I can increase my breadth as much as possible. Now, that's a lot of sidetrack there, but the idea with it is that I would want to make sure that what I'm doing has the best impact for me. And that is what we want to think of when we think of what we're doing throughout the day. For this client, she was working on her nutrition. She was feeling the pressure of the diet all day, every day. But somehow it only led to 5 out of 12 days being within our targets. So we don't need to adjust the macros. The diet isn't working because the macros are wrong. The targets are wrong. The diet isn't working because we're not even reaching the targets. Now, when we explain it this way, when we pull back out and get a big picture, when you're listening to a 20-minute-ish podcast, it can be easier to see that. And especially when we look at someone else's life. It can be easier to see where they fall short on the most important things and are wasting time on the things that aren't as important. That is very easy for us to see in other people's lives, but it's very difficult for us to see in our own life. And it's because we know the reasons why we make the decisions we make. That isn't evident to other people. They just see what we do or don't do. They don't know why. And they're like, well, you're not doing this. Do it. Well, we're like, well, I didn't do it because I had this, and I had this, and I had this, and I thought these were important because of this, and then all of a sudden, you didn't do it. It's important for us to always be diligent to separate the feeling of the pressure of what we're supposed to be doing versus what we actually are doing. Again, if we're not adherent to our current targets, we need to work on our adherence before we actually change the targets. How adherent is adherent enough? So I usually have clients aim for 5 out of 7 days. They were able to reach all their desired targets for whatever their depth of targets are. Some people just have calories. Some people have calories and protein. Some people have calories, protein distribution. Other people might have calories, protein distribution, and then timing of carbs versus fats. Other people, we might have sodium involved, sugar involved. There's a lot of depth of nutritional help that I give to different people. So everything's personalized for each person. So whatever your targets are that you want to be tracking to ensure that you would have, quote unquote, a successful day, we want to be getting that 5 out of 7 days a week. Can you get 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 7? Hell yeah, please do. But don't set that as a standard. You're not going to be perfect all the time. No one is perfect. So it's healthier, and it's beneficial, and you can see progress at 5 out of 7 days. So it's not even necessary to be more adherent if it causes extreme mental stress and frustration. If you can be more adherent, great. But the bottom, the baseline, the floor of adherence is 5 out of 7 days. Until you can be adherent 5 out of 7 days, I would focus on improving your adherence before I'd worry about changing your macros. So do not adjust your targets, do not adjust your macros until you're adherent 5 out of 7 days. Then, once you do reach that level and you need to see progress. So maybe your adherence is in check and now you're like, just not seeing anything. I'm not seeing any changes. What's going on? Well, then it could be worth looking at adjusting your macros, your targets. Maybe. There are other factors. If your sleep has been really crappy, I would focus on improving sleep quality before I would adjust my macros, because our sleep quality is related to our hormonal health. And like one factor that's related to hormonal health in sleep is growth hormone, our natural production of growth hormone. When our natural production of growth hormone is at our optimal best, whatever that is for each individual, you're going to have a greater degree of fat loss and a greater degree of muscle building, just happy hormonal balance in your body. If your sleep is trash, your natural production of growth hormone is going to be reduced, diminished in some way, and that can cause what would feel like, and you could see it in certain ways, a stalling out or a flattening out of progress. So instead of adjusting your macros, we would want to say, my sleep has been different. Let me adjust that back to normal before I consider adjusting my macros. Another choice we have is our training and our activity level. We can choose to eat more or eat less, depending on what way we want to drive progress. Or we can choose to do more or do less. Sometimes when I have clients who are struggling to add muscle tissue, I actually have to reduce their daily step count and their daily activity and say, hey, you've been expressing that you're frustrated and struggling because you're not growing. You also feel absolutely stuffed with all of your food and you don't feel like you can eat anymore. That rec league basketball game that you're playing 3 nights a week, do you think you can cut that down to 2? can you maybe not do the third game on the same day as legs? Or the same day as back, or the same day as chest? Like this muscle that you're struggling to get to grow. Let's not do a basketball game in the 24 hours following that workout, because it's competing with the energy and protein resources you have to build more muscle. That's an extreme case. You don't always have to do that, but I want to just point out something that wasn't pure fat loss, because almost all examples are fat loss based. I wanted to give an example of a muscle growth focus. So sometimes we have to bring our activity down to allow for allocation of our calories and protein to go towards muscle growth and maybe strength increase. There's a lot of times strength athletes tend to be split across a bunch of different avenues. So CrossFit, for example. I work with a lot of CrossFit coaches and CrossFit athletes, and they'll often come to me for rehab, nutrition, and or strength, some combination of that. And when they want to get stronger, one of the first things I have to ask them to do is to stop doing so much other stuff. Because they'll be like, well, I want to squat and deadlift 2 to 3 times a week. But then also I want to be able to do heavy cleans. I want to be able to do maybe hang cleans and snatches and things on another day. So all of a sudden they have like Monday is heavy squats and deadlifts. Tuesday they're doing snatch work. Wednesday maybe we're doing like some kind of accessory lower body crap that's like just all hell, like runs and sprints and bikes and wall balls out the wazoo. Thursday they go back to squats and deadlifts. Friday is like power cleans. And they're like, I'm not getting stronger. And I'm like, because you're using the same damn muscles 24 hours like after each other, day after day after day after day, 5 days in a row. You're using the maximum capacity of these muscles. You're not actually allowing them to ever fully recover to their peak capacity. In a sense, you're training all the time with the muscles between 60 to 80% their best. You're going into a workout, damaging them down to say 60%. I'm just giving numbers, but the point is it's never 100%. That's the point. So you're damaging the muscles, you're damaging the nervous system, you're beating up the body down to 60% of its capacity. You then go home, you eat, you sleep, maybe you have another meal in the morning, and then you're right back in the gym, and your body has only recovered back to maybe 80% capacity, and then you work out again, drive it down to 60. So you're seesawing back and forth between 60 to 80% all the time, and then you wonder why you don't feel strong, or like, oh, so-and-so's lifting more than me, or I can see this person who does that, and they're stronger than I am. And I'll have to talk to CrossFit coaches, and they'll give powerlifters as examples. Like, well, this girl's the same weight class as I am, and she can lift more than me. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, because that's the only thing she's trying to do. She squats and deadlifts on Monday, does bench on Tuesday, takes Wednesday off, squats and deadlifts on Thursday, does bench accessories on Friday, takes Saturday and Sunday off. She has rest time. She is operating her muscles between 60 to 100%, not 60 to 80%. So there is a lot that can go into when we're deciding how to push progress. We would pay attention to sleep. We would pay attention to our training output, capacity, frequency, volume, intensity, all those things. And then we could also choose to eat more or eat less. But none of that matters. Well, I'd say sleep obviously matters. So exclusion of sleep. But the adjustment of our nutrition targets, they don't matter until our adherence is on point. So we want to make sure that we're adhering to our current targets 5 out of 7 days a week before we would then adjust our macros, adjust our targets. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. You can also check out our new Patreon service. There's training programs available from all my clients. You can choose between different membership options. One membership option has 10 training programs available. The other has 20. They're brand new every single month. So you can just use those programs if you're looking for programming options. And then also there's weekly Q&A. You can ask any question you want, and I will answer it directly to you. So that's a pretty awesome service. And then the trainer option on Patreon also has a business Q&A as well as a business education video once per month. Lots of good stuff on there. That's my goal to the people who would like to work with me, but they maybe can't afford the one-on-one coaching. It's $200 a month, but maybe they can't afford that. The Patreon is much cheaper. There's a $20 option and a $50 option, but it has a ton of content and you still get access to me to ask any question you want. My hope is it gives a bridge of the gap. It gives me a way to still get the depth of work that I want, but still get the increase the breadth to be able to help more people. So check that out. You can go to Patreon and just search for Brutal Iron Gym. And then if you have any questions, like I said, you can always shoot me an email at brutaliron@gmail.com. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. The more people you share it with, the more people can help. If you like the podcast, you can consider donating to support the podcast. You can do a donation on our website, or you can buy your supplements from nutricost.com. That's where I buy mine. You can use the code BrutalIron10 for a 10% discount, and then 10% of whatever you spend gets sent back to us as commission. So that's a great way to give back to us while you're getting great supplements at a great discount. And then if you need anything else, as always, reach out. You can find other information from us on Instagram, on YouTube. Both of those are under the name Brutal Iron Gym. I'm just hoping that whatever way in which you need help, you have a way to get it. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.